don't know what they're going to do, and their bodies are reacting like you said. They're just who they are. They're a child, and so we, being the detectives, trying to figure out, okay, what's going to work? How are we going to keep them safe? How are we going to keep everybody else safe? What is going to work? That's where sometimes the fear comes in on both sides of that diagnosis question.
I think it's important to recognize that there's always fear, and with that fear, how you approach it, the openness with which we approach it, the willingness to ask questions, to get feedback, to get support from our peers, from the families, from outside resources if we need it, to seek that help. Our openness in being willing to do that is part of what makes us unique and makes us who we are. So there's always fear. There's fear in everything. And you know what? A world without fear, I think would be a world without change, would be a world without wonder. And it's that open piece, that willingness to step outside that and look beyond that diagnosis or that piece of paper or those fears that you may have, and step beyond and step outside of those boxes to do what's best for kids.
Well, Lisa, and I think you said it best, too. We always try to build the relationships with the families and to get to know the families and the child as individuals, so that we know to be able to go forwards, we need to have that relationship. Or sometimes that information is just words on paper and not what works best for the families or for the children. So that relationship piece is a very important part of who we are, too.
But you do that with every child and every family, and that's what makes it work here, is that's just a natural part of what you do with all families. And so if you're going to talk about roadblocks, I think one of the roadblocks for some places might be that they're not used to doing that, individualizing for every child in the way that you do it so well and so naturally. So it makes it easy to include a child with special needs, because you see all children as having their own special needs and individualizing for all of them. And sometimes, is it true that the children without the diagnoses might be the child in your classroom that needs the most help and the most adaptations?
There are days.
And sometimes not.
So you all seem very motivated. You talked about seeking information, seeking more relationships, building that. Where do you find support as an individual teacher and also as a community of staff? Because it's a lot of work, to really take that extra step. That can also produce a lot of fear for a lot of teachers. Where does that come from, and is it connected in any way in terms of the support that you get?
I think it starts with our leadership here at school, and also our staff relationships. We're close with each other, and our relationship with Hope, being able to reach out to community programs that come in and help support us, and being able to share, like you said, the everyday little things of the everyday, not big, major sit down, solve world hunger right away, but just to share daily and take it on that way.
And then within relationships that have built for years, it makes it easier to solve a problem if you're,
And we've had, with our staff meetings, we've had some trainings, we've had people come from Hope and our leadership here. We have ongoing training going on and discussions about it, and at our not orientation, but when we come back to school and we have a big meeting, and at that point I know there's more training. So I would say training is a big part, and leadership of staff.
I think the willingness to collaborate too. I think there's a lot of us versus them in some places, and we're all very willing to talk it out with one another, and discuss what's going on.
We discuss not only our successes, but also, gosh, I'm really struggling here, and it's
Yeah.
not working, and what can I do? How can I solve this? Any ideas, suggestions? We're willing to say we're not perfect and ask for that help.
Yeah. So you feel safe in your environment.
Very safe.
So can
We
somebody
try to
say
do that for children too.
We feel really safe in our environment. We feel really great.
That's true.
We feel safe in our environment, just like we try to, provide that for our children. They learn and grow when they're safe. We learn and grow when we're safe, when we feel safe.
Okay, one last question before we switch groups, and it's a little bit of a controversial question in the sense that there are many perceptions that special education and developmentally appropriate practice are really on opposite ends of the continuum in terms of what we do as teachers and how we interact with children and families. And so I'm wondering if you can maybe address that and how you've come to terms with really creating that bridge. there is a bridge, is it a bridge, or is it a kind of a figment?
I think when we talk about, so many places do separate it. And I think one of the things that makes it easier in a way, not that we don't face challenges.
Can start over?
Okay.
But when you say separate it, can you say separate
Okay.
the difference between special ed and
Okay.
development for practice?
Okay. I think oftentimes you'll find places do separate it. So separate special education with developmentally appropriate practices. I think that what makes us unique and makes the inclusion piece easier for us is there is no separation there. That we believe all children have the right to be in an environment that facilitates best practices, that looks at what is developmentally appropriate and creates an environment that is safe for them to learn and play and experience life. And so in doing that, the inclusion piece is there.
I think, Mary, the way you said it too, it's such a natural part of our day of what we do. I think it's hard as I look back, 15 years ago when I started at school, and I'm such a different teacher now than I was back then, just growing, and every day you grow and learn and challenging and holding each other accountable and responsible, and because inclusion is just who we are, it just happens. It just happens.
And it happens because you have that foundation that has been built over many years.
So when children have specific, for instance, specific skills that are written on their IEPs or IFSPs, how do you address that in terms of blending that with a curriculum that you've already planned for your programs?
Well, we have a lot of children with OT IEPs and like writing or cutting, and that just happens in our classroom naturally. The writing table is always available, and the cutting is part of the art that we do, and so we just provide that. We don't sit down and say, okay, today you've got to reach this goal of getting 10 perfect cuts on that line. Just cutting is offered to them, and we try to make it fun and exciting, and sometimes we sit down and work together. Just I think with working with their peers it happens, and it may not happen the beginning of school, but it's happening more towards the end of school, and it builds as the year goes on.
We've met too with parents outside of class. We'll have like an informal meeting and just kind of go over their IFSP a little bit and share with them what are you wanting to work on during preschool, and how can we support you and support what's going on at home, get some information. That always helps. And then we kind of just blend it into what we're doing. It might be something at the snack table with eating or putting toys away, and that's part of our transitioning and helping them, when whatever it is that they're working on, and it's a natural part. We just put it in with our regular curriculum.
I think it happens day to day in the environment versus in a more trained or therapeutic program where it's specially right now we're going to work on this, and then now we're going to work on this, and now we're going to work on this, and our program just happens naturally where today's snack, so it's pouring or eating or counting out numbers or tearing or whatever you're doing, and it happens throughout the day with all the children in the classroom, not just one child, or you need to work on this and you need to work on this, so we're going to come work on these together. We work on it together as a group and just try to build it into a natural play environment for them.
That's what I was going to say. I think one of the things that just naturally happens is, if say there's a real specific strategy that a child is working on, let's say cutting or maybe an OT skill of some kind, and lo and behold, as that child is working on that, there'll be multiple children that will come over, and it may be something that helps that child as much as it's helping the child that has the IEP. So then it just becomes, oh, wow, that worked out really well. Let's just build on that. And there you go. It's not just for that child anymore. It's already something. We've got so many strategies that we never would have thought of, but there it is. So let's work on it, build it into the class.
Right. And I think that's the reverse part of inclusion too, is we've learned strategies to help children that have specific needs, but we've been able to share those with children that may not have those needs, but it helps their learning process just be a little crisper, a little easier, or just improve in some area. So we've been able to help both sides of the typically developing and inclusion process.
Okay, super. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys know the words to the song? We wanted you to do that song.
Which song?
song.
What song's that?
It's a little rap.
Good, it's the second group.